What's up, everybody? It's your favorite city boss, favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the SiYang Metroplex. This is all known to me from Richard H. He was supposed to send this to me some time ago, but life got in his way. I had plenty of stuff going on in mine, then he felt bad and all this, which he shouldn't have, because it's really as a privilege for me to have the opportunity to take a look at this, so I'm not on the other end of the mailbox pacing, saying, where is it, where is it? I'm kind of grateful for the opportunities I get, so he should think nothing of it. And we are going to decide if we think anything of it after we do a review. But before we do a review, we have to first take a look at accessories. I do want to say, first and foremost, if you came here to get the down and dirty on the Windblade Build-A-Figure or the electronics, you're going to be a sad panda. Go somewhere else. I'm not doing it. We'll talk about it. I'll tell you how it works and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm not installing all these batteries. Sorry, this isn't a how-to. This is my opinion of the figure and whether or not it's worth purchase point. And hopefully we can come to some conclusion after a review. All right, so let's get started. So he comes with two of these bad boys. They're sculpted well enough, and it's just black plastic, no paint. And they will peg on to the shoulders to kind of give that finished, sort of iconic Metroplex look. The black guns will be utilized in the same space for the kind of spaceship mode. The black guns also tab into the same spot in base mode, and you can have them pointing up or down. It's up to you. I like them pointing up, just gives it, I think, a little bit more flavor, but it's your call. Speaking of sets of two, he comes with two of these bad boys, which are his guns. This bit folds up here. It's maroon plastic. It's in two pieces because this is where the battery goes, but it's just sort of floating in there at the time being. I guess it came undone from its natural state. I'm not exactly sure, but that's where it is. And then it has a handle with a peg in the handle, and that will correspond with a female slot in his palm, but I am having a heck of a time getting this to stay. But there it is, and then you just wrap the fingers around it, but once again, it's not the best connection in my opinion, but there it is. The red guns plug into the side of the calves for spaceship mode. And the red guns attach on the side here for base mode, if you so desire. You might find floating pieces. It's not because they're accessories, but I do want to cover them. They go to the back of the forearm, and this one just has a tendency to fall off. But you can just tab it back on and then pray for the best. It comes with a red translucent cap. Nothing really to write home about. And that will just go here. You can put the batteries behind it. And put it on his chest to finish the look. It comes with a set of sprues to make Windblade. You can cut this off and assemble this at your own risk. The materials feel a little softer plastic, probably to account for these pieces here, so you don't break anything. But it's not gonna feel the greatest. You get the little tank guy. I forget his name. I had the Iron Factory one standing in my collection. But that was a nice little thought. They didn't have to do that. Like, 6-gun was the gun, and then there was like the black car, and then the little tank. And you get the little tank. He also comes with some replacement bits for some people. Like, these are the pieces that hinge up and down, the kind of canopies on the base mode, which you'll see. And I'm guessing that's just in case they break, because they just clip on to mushroom caps, is my guess. And I'm guessing that these are the ones that he's already used. That's the best I got here. And then you get screwdrivers and a ton of like things to hold batteries. And he's included a lot of the batteries too, but I'm going to tell you that, once again, that I'm not going to do them. However, I don't even know if I can. Yeah, most of the batteries are disconnected. So some of them, a lot of them, like the ones that go behind, like the chest and the shoulder and stuff, which will light up this pieces. And I've seen pictures of it. It does look cool. You use your remote control and turn those on. Obviously, they're not in it. But then there's also magnets in the black guns where you can turn on, like, his eyes. Let me see if I can turn this off and just get a better effect. I said you can turn on his eyes. There you go. Those are in there. And then I think the one on his chest and the guns work that way too. And the guns are actually loaded in there, but well, not really loaded guns, right? But they are ready. But since the lights are kind of Oh, well, they were working. Since the lights are kind of, what was I going to say? Oh, floating around inside the barrel of the gun, it doesn't really mean much of anything because it's hard to get the gun to find the exact spot. I'm sure there's a way to get them more in touch and in tune, but until then, I think you get the point. I hope you do. If not, I'm sure somebody else has covered it in more detail. Somebody that's going to keep this thing and has it in their personal collection and would be happy to install all the batteries. There. Not the most responsive, to be fair, but they do look nice. And I'm sure this stuff, especially like on the shoulders, I'm sure that adds a ton to the aesthetic because it doesn't really have a whole lot going for it otherwise in terms of like deco and such. So let's take a look at the figure and we'll get in relatively tight on the head sculpt for Dennis. And I think it's a pretty good head sculpt overall. I think it works. The ears are manipulable. Not sure what the right word is for that. And then underneath here is where the battery is. The visor moves, but I don't think that it's intended to move for any reason to store it because the hat won't close. I think it's just the way that it's assembled that allows it to swivel, and it's always supposed to have the eyes underneath that light up through the visor. I think all of that is intentional, and it's meant to be that way. We have a little red accent there on the hat. Soak it in, because that's about all we get. There are a few others, but by and large. So the head is on a swivel. And is that a ball peg? No, I think it's a hinge swivel. It's just a little loose. So you get up a little bit, down a little bit, and then your swivel, right? As for the arms, we'll just do one. So I'll back out a little bit. And we have a soft ratchet out to the side that gets you 90 degrees. I like that they sculpted the joint. It has a little bit of like personality to it. I dig stuff like that. It has a hard ratchet 360 around, and it has a reverse butterfly. That's due to transformation, but I think it works here. You know, I'm quick to deny a point if I think that they're just trying to kind of get one past you. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbow that gets you the full run. Outstanding. We have some sculpt work, and obviously lights will show up here and lights will show up there, but otherwise it's relying almost completely on the lights and one or two color breakups to give you any sort of aesthetic punch or accent. So not the best there. Sculpt work is cool. Let's look at the hand. Wrist swivel. The fingers are individually articulated. We have a ball peg at the base that comes out to a secondary and tertiary hinge. So they're fully articulated and you get a little spread apart. Not a crazy ton, but I think it works. The thumb is on a ball peg and comes out to a secondary hinge and a tertiary hinge as well. So fully articulated hands. While we're here, we'll talk about the chest. Obviously the red bit goes in the center and lights up. This part lights up. This stays stagnant. You would have an Autobot symbol there, so that would give it a little bit of oomph. We have a ratcheted waist swivel. Get you all the way around. And then we have the hips. And I'm going to adjust the camera a bit and back out while we look at the lower part of the figure. So the hips are universals. Full Van Damme. Full Monty. Thigh swivel at a cut joint. Works just fine. Once again, sculpted detail, not a lick of paint. We do get a little bit of paint down here in the lower area. We get a red accent there on the side, and then we get some red stripes here at the front. Speaking of the legs, 90-degree hinge for a knee bend, which is fine, lowercase f. And then we have the, I like the sculpted detail on the shins, by the way. So the have light up as well. And then you get an ankle tilt down, no ankle tilt up, and you do get a rocker. The rocker is limited, but you do get it. And there he is from the back. I should go over this little rocket thing here too. So this comes up. This is actually this one's supposed to stay stay attached, but and then you can kind of, you know, set it back, move it forward, or tuck it all the way in, so to speak. And I mean, that's pretty much this figure in a nutshell. Very basic, very, like, I think the proportions are okay. The build is fine. The materials feel a little on the cheap side. They just feel like it feels a lot like a children's toy. Not just in how it presents because of the paint and stuff, but also in its kind of, it's physical, like it's palpable build, like the materials themselves. There's plenty of ratchets and stuff, so it's actually, it feels solid, but, it's just the materials. It just feels very like you bought it at Toys R Us for 30 bucks. Do you know what I mean? Let's do some size comparisons. Looking at size comparisons, they basically made this legend scaled by including that Windblade that comes up to about Prime's shoulder size, which would be in scale with Prime. So they're the ones that are kind of saying this is legend scale. I think that's an error. I think they should have gone with maybe the scale that Dr. Wu is doing, or maybe even World's Smallest Transformers, like that old school line there, or something like that, because it's still too small for this scale, in my opinion. But if you wanted an idea, there they are with Prime and Megatron. Modern scale Iron Factory Tarn along with New Age Brawn. You see, and as they get smaller, it starts working better, in my opinion, so to speak. And if we respect nothing else, we respect tradition, old school Iron Factory scale blaster along with the Hasbro Stunticon. So I'm just not sure it works, man, honestly. Let's get him transformed. So we're going to come around to the back here, and we're going to flip open this panel and then flip these wheels out, flip that panel closed, and tab it back in. Same on this side. We're going to flip open this panel, flip open the wheels, flip this back, tab it back in. Down here for the lower legs, which I hope you can see, yes you can, we're going to do the exact same thing. And these wheels here flip out as well. Okay, then for the arms, collapse them and rotate them down. Open up this flap, flip the hand in, close the flap. Same on this side. There's that bit we talked about. Rotate down, flip open, flip in, and then the head is supposed to collapse. Can you see the head? Yes, barely. So rotate the ears so that the guns are kind of facing forward, and then collapse. And I'm a little hesitant here to push this, so I'm not going to. But theoretically, the neck will collapse inside of the chest. I can't get it to budge, and I'm too afraid to break it. All right, so we're going to then make sure the hip is straight. The waist is straight, rather, because the hip design won't allow... because of the design of the hips, it's actually an articulation issue, versus the pelvis, you have to have it straight up and down in order for it to move. So move these down, and then we're going to rotate this around, take this flap, come on girl, that fills in that spot, and this comes back down and sinks back in. Same on this side. Up and over. Flap over. Sinks back in. And then these just sit straight. Make sure all this is lined up. Pretend that the head is sitting inside, and we'll clean it up and take a look at it, I think. And there it is. And I think it ultimately works, right? It doesn't do anything special, but it does enough to get by. I'm not sure if it really rolls or not. Hard to tell on this mat that I have, but either way, I think that you'll be satisfied with how it moves. And I mean, that's all that there really is to it. It doesn't really do anything else. You know, but it looks the part. There it is next to Tiger Tracks. So substantial. And then here it is with New Age Brawn. And that'll even fit inside of there. So that actually works, you know, arguably a little bit better with the Legends stuff, you know. But I don't know. I don't know what more you would want from it, you know. Like these like base formers or fortress formers or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they don't have to do a whole lot to be successful, and I think this does enough to get by. All right, so let's get him into base mode. So rotate his hips down, because once again, we can't rotate it unless the legs are straight. And then you can get the legs back up. And square that off. All the wheels you can tuck in, so we'll do the ones on his backside first. And then we'll do these. So we're just really just putting this back the way it was before we got it into spaceship mode or whatever. Flapping in our wheels. And flapping in our wheels. And then this piece needs to come up and around, but this section here, you can take these legs, spread them so to speak, and then bend at the knee inward, right, to kind of give that classic look. And this piece here needs to come unclipped. There's your clip, so just work with that little Debbie. And then position this however you see fit. And this is just another piece that just tabs in. Sorry if you can't see that. All right, so let's do it on this side as well. Here's our clip here. Open that up. And then rotate this back. And you can kind of have that in any position you see fit. And then we just have all of this to work out. So for this, we're just going to rotate the arm. We're going to extend the arm. We're going to rotate it to the back. And we're going to rotate the bicep. And that one sits at the back. This one, we're just going to turn upside down. And this one doesn't have the butterfly joint. That's worth noting. He only has the reverse butterfly on the one. You know, for transformation purposes. All right. And then just a few things remain. This extends up. And you can bring this over if you want to. Up to you. And this piece flips over. And you can have these ears up. If you know. Actually, let's just turn the head around. Can we? No. Ooh, that sucks. Well, we'll turn it to this side. And then open this up. And then this ramp comes out and down. And I could be wrong, but I think that's it. So I'll clean it up and we'll take a look at it. And there it is in base mode, and I think this is the winner of the three. Like, you get a ton more painted details and stuff, like all the kind of caution stuff and helicopter landing and all that. Like, that's kind of where you get your biggest bang for your buck, your return. You know, the transformation's simple enough to get through. Base modes I'm really forgiving of generally because I feel like all you got to do is kind of manipulate it enough to make it look somewhat interesting, and I think this does that, and perhaps does it better than others. These might be stickers. Yeah, I think there's stickers that he probably put on. Either way, though, looks good. You know, you could do whatever you want with these. I kind of like them up here, like these little balconies. But yeah, I mean, I think it's effective, man. Let's take a look at some size comparisons. Here we are with Tiger Tracks. Here we are with Outback. And let's put in our tank here for good measure also. So, you know what I mean? I think it works. I think it would work better for the world's smallest Transformers. I honestly think that for a Legends class base, you'd probably be better off with the Hasbro offering, just because of how huge it is in comparison. It would really drive the kind of scale of it home. But be that as it may, there's something, you know, and you can have these towers here up or down, and that goes for robot mode and spaceship mode as well. A lot of this stuff with these like city formers are like kind of your prerogative. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you want it to look? And I kind of dig that about them El Total. Road to 100, boys. Final thoughts wise, let's start with the negatives. So the biggest glaring negative to me is just how kind of cheap it feels. And that's not to say it feels like shampoo bottle plastic or anything like that. It just feels like, I said in my opening thoughts on Patreon, like it feels like a heavy duty Star Wars 3 3/4 vehicle, except this vehicle is a robot, which is fine, right? Like a Star Wars 3 3/4 vehicle feels fine, but it doesn't feel like a third party figure, at least to the level of quality that I'm used to with third party figures. And it certainly doesn't feel like anything that should be over $100. A lot of times between 150 to 200, depending on where you're shopping. It doesn't feel like it should be that. The price doesn't equate to this. Size doesn't do it, right? Size has nothing to do with it. There's those 12-inch 5 POA or less Star Wars figures. I think they were actually 24-inch that sat at the end caps forever that were like $10. It's because they were super easy to make. It has nothing to do with the size of the figure. That has nothing to do with equating it to the price. But this isn't a very complicated figure. It's not complex. There's not a ton of parts or any of that. And the materials don't feel astounding. They feel fine, but they don't feel as elegant or sophisticated as a lot of other third-party offerings. It also doesn't have a whole lot of deco, not a whole lot of paint attention. It relies on the electronics to kind of get itself by. And I do think that the electronics are probably cool, and I like the remote control aspect of it, but we'll save those for the positives. The ankle rockers are limited, and that does get in the way of one of the better things about this figure, which is it is highly articulated for its bulk, so to speak, but then the ankle rockers stop you from kind of pushing it to its limits. Another issue is this gets in the weeds of articulation, but when you have those big bulbous thighs and hips and you're trying to manipulate them around the waist, it limits the waist. So if you look at this, for instance, his waist and everything is sitting straight forward. I would prefer his waist be turned so that his left arm with the gun was facing more towards the front. Can't do that because the waist won't turn with the hip up at that angle. Little stuff like that that's just not the most thought out. The only other negative that I really have is like going from mode to mode. There's some stuff that's just like the stuff on the back of the forearms and the stuff inside of the feet. It's not like glued in or screwed in. It's just tabbed in and just waiting for it to kind of be nudged so that it can fall apart. Just gives it a less than premium feel. A lot of this, my biggest issue is that it just doesn't feel like a premium piece. It feels like a cheap piece, but that doesn't mean it's a bad piece. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't feel refined in the same way. Moving on to the positives. There is a playability factor here because it does feel like it can handle being sort of knocked about, once again due to the materials, because it feels like something you would have bought at Toys R Us on the lower shelf. There's a playability where you kind of feel like you're not going to break it. You can kind of slam it up against stuff, throw it around the room, and you'll be fine. Like I said, I do like the fact that it's remote control operated for the electronics, because there's nothing worse than having a figure with all that electronics that it actually does rely on for aesthetics to have to go in and switch on every single one like Flame Toys does. I like the fact that you can just sort of click and they're on. You know, you might have to click a few times, but you know what I mean. I actually wish that that same remote control operated the ones in the eyes and the chest too. I don't know why they didn't do that. The articulation works pretty well. Some of it better than others. I think the knee and the ankle rockers are the only thing that feel limited. And then the hips, but that's a design issue. But the arms are done well. Waist swivel, head articulation's fine. Like, it's going to get you through. And I mean, what I think that this guy lacks in elegance and sophistication and, you know, maybe arguably even quality of materials, it does make up for with fun. It's a fun piece to mess with. It's a fun piece to flip between the three modes. It's not frustrating. The only thing that's frustrating about it is, you know, getting the pieces that fall off to go back in. But all in all, it's a small price to pay. I think the two alt modes look good. I think the robot mode looks good enough. It's a recommend from me. Just know exactly what you're getting into. I do think it's a little overpriced, and I do think that you'd be better off with something that's scaled a bit better with the Legends figures. But if you're a Metroplex fan, or you just like to mess around with cool stuff, it's cool cool enough. It's definitely not the best Metroplex I've ever looked at. In fact, it may be the worst, but that's by default because most of them have been pretty good. So yeah, soft recommend from me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.